Hello, and welcome back to Today English Podcast. My name is Laura, and I'm here to guide you on your journey to clear, confident, and natural English. If you're new here, make sure to hit the subscribe button so you never miss a lesson. Your support truly helps this channel grow. All right, take a deep breath, relax, and let's begin today's session. I want you to imagine this moment with me. You wake up early in the morning, long before the sun rises. The world is still quiet, and the air feels a little cold on your skin. You open your eyes slowly, hoping that today will feel a little different from yesterday. You want a day to feel brighter, easier, lighter. But almost immediately, a small voice begins to speak inside your mind. It is quiet at first, almost like a soft radio in another room. But then it becomes louder. And louder. And louder. You're not ready. You will fail. People will judge you. You can't do it. These thoughts come before your feet even touch the ground. And when this voice appears, a heavy feeling falls over your chest, like a shadow slowly covering the morning light. This is the beginning of our story today. This is where so many people live every single day, inside a mind full of storms, full of thoughts that feel like they have too much power. Today, I want to take you on a long, gentle journey to understand these storms, to walk through them, and to slowly, patiently, kindly learn how to calm them. This is not just an English story. This is a story about thinking, about breathing, about emotions, and about learning how to feel safe inside your own mind again. There was a young man named Leo who knew this storm very well. Leo was an ordinary guy with an ordinary life, but his mind was not always a friendly place. His thoughts often felt like dark clouds that covered his days. Even when something good happened, he found himself worrying, imagining the worst, or telling himself that he did not deserve it. When he looked in the mirror, he saw someone who was trying, but he also saw someone who was tired, afraid, and stuck. Every morning, he woke up with the same question in his mind. Why do I feel this way? Why do these thoughts keep coming back? Leo believed that something was wrong with him. He believed that he was broken somehow, that he was weak for not being able to control his thinking. But the truth, the deeper truth, was something he had never heard before. Negative thinking patterns do not mean you are weak. They mean you are human. They mean your mind is trying to protect you, even if it is doing it in the wrong way. But Leo did not know this yet. One morning, Leo walked out of his small apartment and felt the cold air on his face. He looked up at the sky, but instead of seeing something beautiful, he felt a strange heaviness growing inside him. He had an important meeting that day, something he had been preparing for a long time. But as he walked toward the bus stop, a familiar whisper began to rise inside his thoughts. You're going to make a mistake, it said. They will see you're not good enough, it continued. Everyone else is smarter than you. Leo tried to push the thoughts away. He shook his head, took a deep breath, and said quietly, "Stop." But the thoughts did not stop. They became stronger, like waves hitting the shore again and again. When he finally sat on the bus, the voice was so loud that he could barely hear the world outside. It felt like he was trapped inside his own mind, watching the world from behind glass. On the bus, Leo looked around. He saw people scrolling on their phones, listening to music, staring out the window. And for a moment, he wondered if everyone else was calm, if everyone else lived without this noise inside their heads. He thought, maybe I'm the only one who feels this way. Maybe I'm the only person who can't control his own mind. And that thought made him feel even smaller. But as he sat there, something unusual happened. A woman sat down next to him, a woman he had never seen before. She looked calm, peaceful, almost glowing with quiet confidence. She held a small notebook in her hands, and on the cover of the notebook, Leo noticed a simple handwritten phrase, "Your thoughts are not your identity." It was such a simple sentence, but when Leo read it, something inside him moved. It felt like a small light turning on in a dark room. The bus began to move, and Leo kept staring at the notebook. He didn't know why, but he felt like he needed to understand that sentence. Your thoughts are not your identity. He whispered it to himself, tasting the words, feeling their meaning. The woman noticed him reading her notebook, and she smiled kindly. It's okay, she said softly. You can read it. I wrote it for myself. It helps me remember. Leo felt embarrassed. Does it really work? He asked quietly. She nodded. It helps me every day. My mind is not always quiet. I used to believe everything I thought. But then I learned that a thought is only a thought. It is not the truth. It is not who I am. Leo looked at her, surprised. You also have negative thoughts? She laughed gently. Of course. Everyone does. The difference is that some people believe them, and some people learn to watch them. Leo felt something shift inside him, something small but important. Maybe he wasn't alone. Maybe he wasn't broken. Maybe he was just human. But before Leo could ask more questions, the bus stopped and the woman stood up. This is my stop, she said with a warm smile. Take care of yourself today. And then she walked away, leaving Leo with the simple sentence still burning gently inside his mind. Your thoughts are not your identity. He repeated it again. He felt something inside him soften, just a little. But even with this new feeling, the negative thoughts continued their slow whispers. They were still there. They still followed him like shadows. But now, for the first time, Leo had a small tool. A light. A different perspective. And on that morning, as he stepped off the bus, this tiny light was enough to create the beginning of a change. Leo walked through the city streets, hearing the sound of cars, feeling the energy of people rushing to work. But his mind was still busy, still full of noise. He tried to remember the woman's words, but it was difficult. The thoughts came fast. You are not ready for the meeting. You will embarrass yourself. You don't belong here. He knew these thoughts weren't helpful, but they felt powerful. They felt like the truth. He entered the office building and took the elevator to the 6th floor. His heart was beating fast, and he felt his hands shaking. When the elevator doors opened, he almost turned around. He almost ran away. But he didn't. He walked toward the meeting room with slow, heavy steps. When he arrived, he sat down on a chair outside the door and closed his eyes. And then something quiet and surprising happened. In the silence, he remembered the woman's voice, calm and steady. A thought is only a thought. And for the first time, Leo said those words to himself in his own voice. A thought is only a thought. And when he said it, he felt a strange distance between himself and the negative words in his mind. He felt space. He felt separation. The thoughts didn't disappear, but they were no longer touching him directly. It was like he was watching them from far away, like clouds moving slowly across the sky. And in that moment, Leo realized something powerful. He didn't have to believe every thought that appeared in his mind. He could choose which thoughts to trust. He could choose which thoughts to hold. And this was the first quiet moment of freedom he had felt in a long time. He took a deep breath, opened his eyes, and entered the meeting room. But this story is not about the meeting. This story is about the journey inside the mind. And as Leo walked into that room, something important began to happen inside him. He started to question the storm. He started to watch it instead of drowning in it. He started to understand that negative thinking patterns are not natural truths. They're habits. Learned habits. Repeated habits. And like all habits, they can be unlearned. But change is never quick. And for Leo, the journey ahead would be long. He would still face bad days. He would still hear the voice of doubt. He would still struggle. But he would also grow. He would meet new people, learn new tools, face difficult emotional challenges, and discover moments of beautiful clarity. He would learn how to listen to his thoughts with kindness. He would learn how to calm his mind. He would learn how to understand the difference between fear and reality. And through this long journey, something inside him would slowly transform. Something inside him would slowly wake up. For now, Leo finishes his meeting, but he doesn't celebrate. He sits alone in a small cafe afterward, holding a warm cup of tea between his hands. The thoughts return, but they are softer, lighter, less powerful. He looks out the window and watches people walking by, each person carrying their own invisible world inside their minds. Some are calm, some are stressed, some are lost, some are hopeful. And he wonders if they also fight with their thoughts the way he does. The way you might. The way so many of us do. As he sits there, watching life move around him, he realizes something. He has spent years believing the voice inside his mind. He has spent years letting negative thoughts shape his feelings, his actions, his confidence, his life. But now, with just one simple sentence from a stranger on a bus, he has found the first small crack in the wall. And from that crack, light begins to enter. He whispers quietly, maybe I can change. Maybe my thoughts don't control me. Maybe I can learn to live differently. And this whisper is the beginning of a new chapter. This is where our story truly begins. Leo walked home that evening with slow steps, feeling the cool air brush against his face. The city lights were beginning to shine, one by one, like stars waking up after a long sleep. The sky was turning a soft blue mixed with fading gold, and for a moment, Leo felt peaceful. But as always, the quiet moments were dangerous. Quiet moments were the times when the mind could speak loudly. And as he crossed the street, he felt the familiar pressure building again, like a shadow rising behind him. You didn't do well, the voice said. People noticed your mistakes. You could have said things better. You should have spoken more clearly. These thoughts came fast, like drops of rain before a storm. Leo felt his shoulders becoming heavy. He felt his breath become shallow. He felt like he was falling back into the same old pattern, the same old cycle, the same old story that his mind loved to repeat. He walked into a small park nearby and sat on an empty bench. The trees were quiet, their branches moving gently with the evening wind. Leo put his hands in his pockets and stared at the ground. He knew he had done his best in the meeting. He knew he had prepared, spoken with effort, tried to stay calm. But the negative thoughts did not care about the truth. They only cared about the story they wanted to tell. And the story they told was always the same. You're not enough. Leo closed his eyes and took a long breath. He thought of the woman on the bus, the gentle smile on her face, the softness in her voice. Your thoughts are not your identity, she had said. But right now, those words felt far away. When the negative thoughts came, they felt real. They felt like facts. They felt like the truth. He sat there quietly for several minutes. The world around him kept moving, cars passing, birds flying, children laughing in the distance. But inside Leo's mind, everything felt stuck. He felt like he was trapped between two worlds, the world he wanted to live in and the world his thoughts created for him. And the more he sat there, the more he realized something painful. He had been carrying these thoughts for years. These weren't new thoughts. These weren't sudden thoughts. They were old. Very old. They were familiar, like old songs he never wanted to hear, but still knew by heart. When he was younger, Leo remembered being afraid to speak in front of people. He remembered the trembling in his voice, the tightness in his throat, the heat in his cheeks. He remembered someone laughing at him once when he made a small mistake, and he remembered how that moment stayed with him, repeating again and again inside his mind. He remembered trying to do well in school, but always feeling like he was falling behind. He remembered teachers saying things that made him doubt himself. He remembered family members comparing him to others. And slowly, over the years, these experiences turned into stories. And these stories turned into beliefs. And these beliefs turned into habits. Habits of thinking. Habits of fear. Habits of doubt. Leo opened his eyes and looked up at the sky again. He wondered how long he had been living inside these stories. He wondered how many moments in his life were shaped not by who he truly was, but by the thoughts he believed. He wondered how many opportunities he had avoided because the voice inside his mind whispered things like, "You can't do it. You will fail. Other people are better." And as he thought about all of this, he felt a deep sadness. Not because he was weak, not because he was broken, but because he had never learned another way. He had never learned how to question the stories his mind told him. He had never learned how to step outside of them. He had never learned how to see them for what they really were, habits, not truths. As the wind moved through the park, something unexpected happened. A small boy, maybe 8 or 9 years old, ran past Leo and stopped near a tree. He was carrying a small kite with bright red cloth and long golden strings. The boy tried to make the kite fly, running in circles, pulling the string, laughing loudly. But the kite kept falling. Again and again, it dropped to the ground. But the boy didn't look disappointed. He didn't look frustrated. Every time the kite fell, he picked it up, dusted it off, and tried again. Leo watched him carefully. The boy's face was full of excitement, not fear. He was focused on trying, not on failing. There was no negative voice telling him he wasn't good enough. There was only curiosity, only joy, only the desire to see the kite fly. After a few minutes, the boy's father walked over and knelt beside him. Leo could hear their voices, soft and gentle. "It didn't fly," the boy said. "Not yet," the father answered. "But it will. Try again. The wind will help you." The boy nodded and ran again, pulling the string with energy. Leo felt something inside him soften. He wished he could speak to his younger self the way that father spoke to his son. He wished he could say, "It's okay if things don't work the first time. Keep trying." But instead, he had grown up hearing different voices, voices that said, "Be perfect. Don't fail. Don't make mistakes." And now, as an adult, he still carried those voices inside him. They became the foundation of his negative thinking. They became the roots of his fear. Leo continued watching the boy until the kite finally caught the wind. It rose slowly, then suddenly climbed high into the air. The boy laughed loudly, spinning around with joy. His father clapped and smiled. Leo felt a warm feeling inside, something gentle, something hopeful. He whispered to himself, "Maybe my mind is like that kite. Maybe it keeps falling now because I haven't learned how to fly it yet." He paused. He let the thought sink in. Maybe negative thinking is not who I am. Maybe it's just something I learned. And if I learned it, maybe I can unlearn it. The idea was new. It was fragile. It was like a small flame, easy to blow away. But it was there. He stood up from the bench and began walking again. His thoughts were still present, but they felt slightly different. Softer. Less sharp. As he walked past the trees, he began thinking about where these negative thinking patterns came from. He wondered how many times he had repeated the same thoughts without realizing it. He wondered how many moments he had lost because he listened to the voice of fear instead of the voice of possibility. And as he thought about all of this, something inside him awakened. He understood, finally, that negative thinking is not a single event. It is a pattern, a habit, a repeated way of being. And habits are powerful. But habits are not permanent. He walked toward the main street, and the lights of the shops began to glow brighter. People were laughing, buying food, talking with their families. Leo felt like an observer, someone walking through a world that was moving faster than he was. But instead of feeling small, he felt curious. Curious about himself. Curious about his mind. Curious about the stories he had been carrying for so long. As he crossed the street, he whispered again, "A thought is only a thought." And each time he said it, he felt a little lighter. He walked into a small grocery store to buy something for dinner. As he walked through the aisles, he noticed something strange. He noticed that he was paying attention to the world outside his mind. The colors of the fruit. The sound of a child laughing near the cereal boxes. The old man slowly choosing apples. It was as if his mind had opened a small window, just enough for the world to enter. And that small window made everything feel different. When Leo reached the counter to pay, the cashier smiled warmly at him. "Good evening," she said. Her voice was gentle. Leo smiled back. "Good evening." It was a simple exchange. A very small moment. But it felt significant. It felt grounding. It felt like proof that life existed outside the storm of his thoughts. When he walked out of the store, he felt a little stronger. Not confident yet. Not fearless yet. But stronger. As he continued walking home, he began to understand something important. Negative thinking becomes powerful when you believe it without looking at it. When you accept it without questioning it. When you let it speak louder than your own voice. And that was what Leo had been doing for a long time. He had let his thoughts lead him. He had let them shape him. He had let them become the author of his life. But now he was learning something new. He didn't have to let his thoughts decide everything. He could watch them. He could observe them. He could choose which thoughts to feed and which to let go. When he finally arrived home, Leo placed his grocery bag on the kitchen counter and sat down on the sofa. He felt tired, not physically tired, but mentally tired. But he also felt proud of himself. Today was different. Today he had not run from his thoughts. Today he had looked at them, listened to them, questioned them. Today he had taken a small step toward understanding. And small steps matter. Small steps build new paths. Small steps become the beginning of great changes. He closed his eyes and breathed deeply. In that moment of silence, he realized something beautiful. Negative thinking patterns are not monsters. They are not enemies. They are old stories, old memories, old fears. And sometimes, they are there because they once tried to protect you. But protection is not the same as truth. And fear is not the same as reality. And old stories are not the same as you are becoming. Leo whispered, "I am learning." And with those words, he felt something inside him shift again. Something gentle. Something new. Something hopeful. And this was only the beginning. The next morning, Leo woke up earlier than usual. The sky was still dark, and the city was quiet, as if it were holding its breath. He lay in bed for a few seconds without moving, waiting to see which voice would appear first, the voice of fear or the voice of curiosity. For a moment, there was silence. Then, slowly, the familiar whisper returned. "You didn't sleep enough. You will be tired today. You will make mistakes. Things will go wrong." The words fell into his mind like cold drops of water. But this time, something inside Leo felt different. He didn't immediately accept the voice as the truth. He didn't immediately believe everything it said. Instead, he simply noticed it. He watched the thoughts appear the same way someone watches clouds move in the sky, without trying to stop them, without trying to hold them, without letting them control his breath. Leo sat up slowly and placed his feet on the floor. The room felt quiet and still, like a blank page waiting to be written on. He closed his eyes and whispered, "A thought is only a thought." He let the words settle into the air, and for a moment he felt a bit lighter. Not fully calm, but aware. Awareness was new to him. He had spent years reacting to every thought, fighting every thought, believing every thought. But now he was learning how to watch them instead, like someone standing at the edge of the ocean watching the waves without trying to push them away. He walked to the kitchen, made a cup of tea, and sat near the window. The warm cup felt comforting in his hands. The steam rose slowly, curling in soft shapes. Outside, the first colors of morning touched the sky. He took a sip of tea and began to think about something he had never truly thought about before: the difference between thinking and awareness. He realized that awareness felt like standing in a quiet, steady place inside himself, a place where thoughts come and go, but he remains still. But thinking, especially negative thinking, felt like being pulled by a strong wind, being pushed in directions he didn't choose, being taken away from the present moment. Leo whispered again, "I want to understand my mind." And with that simple desire, his day began. He showered, got dressed, and walked outside. The air was fresh, cool, a bit damp. The city was waking up slowly. As he walked down the street, he tried something new. Every time a negative thought appeared, he noticed it and silently named it. When the voice said, "You look tired," Leo whispered in his mind, "Self-judgment." When the voice said, "You are not good enough," he whispered, "Old fear." When the voice said, "People will think you're strange," he whispered, "Anxiety." Every name he gave was like a small label placed gently on each thought. And when the thoughts were labeled, they felt less powerful. They felt like things he could observe, not things that controlled him. As he reached the bus stop, he noticed something interesting. For the first time, he felt a little bigger than his thoughts. Not stronger, not braver, not perfect. Just bigger. As if he were the sky, and his thoughts were clouds moving through it. And the sky is always bigger than the clouds. He stepped onto the bus and sat down near the window. He looked around, wondering if he might see the woman with the notebook again, but she was not there. Still, Leo felt grateful to her. A single sentence from a stranger had become a seed in his mind, and every day that seed was growing a little more. Your thoughts are not your identity. He repeated the words silently, letting their truth sink deeper. As the bus moved through the city, Leo began thinking about something important. Why do negative thoughts feel so loud? Why do they feel more real than positive ones? Why do they come so easily? And then he realized something meaningful. For many years, his mind had practiced negative thinking. It had repeated those same lines over and over, like a song played hundreds of times. They had become automatic. They had become comfortable in a strange, unhealthy way. He had taught his mind to look for danger, to expect failure, to prepare for disappointment. He had trained his mind to survive, not to live fully. And when he realized this, something inside him softened. He placed a hand on his chest and whispered quietly, "It's not my fault. I learned this. And I can learn something new." His eyes felt warm for a moment, not from sadness, but from a gentle, healing kind of honesty. When the bus arrived near his office, Leo stepped off and walked slowly, breathing deeply. He felt nervous about the day ahead, but he also felt grounded. He was learning to watch his mind. He was learning to separate thoughts from reality. He was learning to understand the quiet space inside himself. Later in the afternoon, after several hours of work, Leo decided to take a short break. He walked to a small cafe nearby, ordered a warm drink, and sat alone near the window. The cafe was cozy and smelled like fresh bread and roasted coffee beans. A soft song was playing in the background, and people around him were talking in gentle voices. Leo opened his notebook. He had bought one for himself the night before, inspired by the woman on the bus, and he wrote 3 simple words on the first page: "I am watching." Those words felt powerful. They felt like a new beginning. As he sipped his drink, he began writing down the thoughts he had noticed throughout the day. What if I make a mistake? They will judge me. I'm not smart enough. I don't belong here. He wrote them slowly, one by one, looking at each thought as if it were a creature placed gently on the page. He looked at them with curiosity and kindness. He didn't fight them. He didn't try to erase them. He just watched them. And as he watched them, he noticed something. Written down on paper, the thoughts looked smaller, weaker. They looked like frightened little shadows instead of huge dark storms. He wrote underneath them, "These are not facts. These are habits." And when he saw those words on paper, he felt something inside him open. Something soft. Something hopeful. He felt like he was finally beginning to understand the deeper truth. He was not fighting his thoughts. He was understanding them. He closed his notebook and looked outside. People were walking past the cafe, living their own stories, carrying their own invisible fears and hopes. Leo wondered how many of them were also trapped in negative thinking patterns. How many of them believed the voice inside their mind more than they believed the truth of who they were. He felt a sudden sense of connection with them. Everyone was carrying something. Everyone had an inner world. Everyone had battles others couldn't see. After leaving the cafe, Leo walked toward a quiet street lined with tall trees. The branches moved softly in the wind, and the sunlight filtered through the leaves in gentle waves. He felt peaceful as he walked, and then he heard footsteps behind him. When he turned around, he saw an older man with kind eyes and a calm expression. The man smiled politely and walked beside him for a moment before asking, "Are you looking for something?" Leo was surprised. "Looking for something?" he repeated. The man nodded. "You look like someone searching for something. Peace, maybe. Or clarity." Leo hesitated. He didn't know how to answer. But the man didn't seem to be in a hurry. His presence felt gentle and patient, like someone who understood silence. After a few seconds, Leo said, "I think I'm looking for myself." The man chuckled softly, not in a mocking way, but in a warm, knowing way. "Ah," he said, "then you are on the right path. Most people look for themselves outside. In success, in approval, in attention." He paused. "But the truth is that you only find yourself when you look inside." Leo felt a shiver run through him. "But it's difficult inside," he admitted. "There are many thoughts. Many fears." The man nodded, as if he understood perfectly. "Yes, the mind is noisy. But the noise is not you. It is just sound. And the more you listen, the quieter it becomes." Leo looked at him with surprise. The man continued walking slowly and said, "Awareness is like a candle. At first, the candle is small. But when you bring it into a dark room, even the smallest light changes everything." He turned to Leo and smiled. "You are learning to bring a candle into your mind. That is enough for now." Leo didn't know who the man was. He didn't know why he had said those things. But he felt grateful. Deeply grateful. And before Leo could ask another question, the man pointed to a small path and said, "This is my way. Take care of your candle." Then he walked away. Leo stood still for a moment, watching the man disappear into the trees. He felt a deep sense of warmth in his chest. It was as if life itself was guiding him, through strangers, through moments, through small pieces of wisdom hidden in ordinary days. As he continued walking, Leo repeated the man's words in his mind. "Take care of your candle." He thought about what that meant. Maybe it meant protecting his awareness. Maybe it meant being gentle with himself. Maybe it meant giving himself space to grow slowly, patiently, quietly. When Leo returned home that evening, he placed his notebook on his desk, sat on his bed, and closed his eyes. He breathed deeply, watching the thoughts appear and disappear. Watching fear. Watching doubt. Watching old stories. And the more he watched, the weaker they felt. The more he observed, the more he understood. He whispered softly, "I am not my thoughts. I am the one who sees them." And as those words settled into the silence, Leo felt a deep, peaceful truth begin to bloom inside him. The candle was small, but it was shining. The next few days passed quietly, but inside Leo, something was slowly changing. It wasn't a loud change. It wasn't dramatic. It was more like the way morning light quietly enters a dark room, touching everything gently, slowly revealing shapes that had always been there, but had never been seen clearly before. Leo woke up each morning with the same familiar voice of worry inside his mind, but now that voice felt less powerful. He still heard it, but he no longer felt controlled by it. He was learning to listen without reacting. He was learning to watch without believing. And this small difference made the world around him feel slightly softer, slightly larger, slightly safer. One morning, as he walked toward the bus stop, he noticed fog covering the streets. Thick, white, quiet fog. The buildings looked like shadows, the cars moved slowly, and the world felt peaceful and mysterious. Leo stood there for a moment, watching the fog swirl around him. He realized something important. His mind also had fog. Negative thinking created fog. Fear created fog. Old memories created fog. And for most of his life, he had been walking through this inner fog without knowing it. He had believed the fog was the truth. He had believed that the shapes inside the fog were dangerous. But now, slowly, he was learning how to move through it with awareness. How to walk without fear. How to see beyond the fog. When the bus arrived, Leo stepped on, sat near the window, and watched the city blur past him. The fog made everything look softer, almost dreamlike. As he watched the world move through that white quietness, a question appeared in his mind. If my mind has fog, what is on the other side of it? He didn't know the answer yet, but he felt curious. And curiosity was new. Curiosity was the beginning of courage. At work, Leo had a busy day. Meetings, emails, tasks, conversations. And with each moment, negative thoughts tried to sneak into his mind. You are too slow. You didn't answer well. They think you are strange. You should be better. But now, every time a thought appeared, Leo paused, breathed, and named it gently. Self-criticism. Fear of judgment. Old memory. Expecting perfection. And every label made the thought feel lighter, less sticky, less dangerous. It was as if naming the thoughts gave him a little distance from them, enough space to choose a different reaction. At lunchtime, Leo went outside and sat on a bench near a small fountain. The water sparkled under the gray sky. The sound of the fountain felt calming, like a soft rhythm that grounded his breath. As he sat there, he noticed a woman sitting on another bench nearby. She was older, with silver hair tied in a soft bun. She held a small journal in her lap and was writing slowly, thoughtfully. At one point, she looked up and noticed Leo watching her. She smiled warmly. "Beautiful day, isn't it?" she said. Leo nodded. "Yes, even with the fog." The woman laughed. "Fog makes everything feel gentle. It hides the sharp edges of the world." Leo liked that sentence. It felt true. He hesitated for a moment, but then asked, "Do you write every day?" The woman nodded. "I do. It helps me understand myself. Helps me breathe. Helps me see my thoughts clearly." Leo felt something wake up inside him. "I've been trying to understand my thoughts too," he said quietly. "They're difficult sometimes." The woman's eyes softened, as if she understood exactly what he meant. "Thoughts can be heavy," she said. "Thoughts can be confusing. But writing them down can feel like putting fog into words. When you write it, the fog becomes a shape. And when it becomes a shape, you can walk around it, look at it, understand it." Leo nodded slowly. He remembered the first page in his own notebook. "I am watching." He wondered if he should tell the woman about his journey, but something inside him felt shy, tender, still growing. Instead, he simply asked, "Does it ever get easier?" The woman smiled gently. "Not all at once. But slowly, you learn how to walk through your own mind without fear. Slowly, your thoughts become quieter. Slowly, you become kinder to yourself." She looked at the fountain for a moment before adding softly, "The secret is patience." Patience. The word made Leo pause. Patience was something he rarely gave himself. He expected himself to change quickly, fix everything quickly, succeed quickly. And when he didn't, he judged himself. But patience felt like a warm blanket, something soft he had never learned to wrap around himself. Before the woman left, she looked at Leo and said, "You're already on the right path. The fact that you're aware of your thoughts means the fog is clearing." Leo watched her walk away, feeling a quiet gratitude for her words. He realized that life was giving him teachers in unexpected places, on buses, in parks, in cafes, on benches. Every small interaction was like a piece of guidance, helping him understand his own mind. Later that evening, when Leo returned home, he took off his shoes, placed his notebook on the table, and sat on the floor near his window. The city lights glowed softly outside. He took a deep breath and wrote, "Fog is not danger. Fog is just fog." He looked at the sentence on the page and felt something shift inside him. For years, he had believed that every negative thought was a warning, a signal, a truth. He believed that thinking something scary meant something scary would happen. He believed that thinking something negative meant something negative about himself. But now he was beginning to understand a deeper truth. Thoughts are not predictions. Thoughts are not facts. Thoughts are not destiny. Thoughts are just thoughts. He continued writing, "I want to learn how to walk calmly through my thoughts." As he wrote, he felt calm. The kind of calm that comes when you finally speak honestly to yourself. When you finally give yourself space to feel your emotions without running away. After writing for a long time, Leo stood up and made himself a small dinner. As he ate, he reflected on his day. He remembered the fog. He remembered the woman with silver hair. He remembered the gentle sentence she said, "Fog hides the sharp edges of the world." And he realized something powerful. Maybe negative thoughts also hide things, not danger, but clarity. Maybe behind every negative thought, there was something important he needed to see. A few minutes later, his phone rang. It was his friend Maya, someone he hadn't spoken to in a while. Maya was always bright, always energetic, always full of life. Leo answered the phone with a soft smile. "Leo," Maya said happily. "I haven't heard from you in ages. How are you?" Leo hesitated. The automatic answer came to his mind, "I'm fine." But this time, he didn't want to give an automatic answer. He wanted to be honest. Gentle. Real. "I'm learning," he said. Maya laughed lightly. "Learning what?" Leo took a slow breath. "Learning how to understand myself. Learning how to deal with negative thoughts." There was a short pause on the other end of the line. Then Maya said softly, "I didn't know you were struggling." Leo sighed. Not in sadness, but in relief. "I didn't know how to talk about it." Maya's voice became warm. "I'm glad you're talking about it now. You're not alone, Leo. I've had days like that too. Weeks, even." Leo felt a deep comfort hearing that. He had always thought Maya was perfect, confident, unshakable. But now he realized everyone carried invisible fog inside them. They talked for a while about life, about fear, about habits of the mind. At one point, Maya said something that stayed with Leo long after the call ended. "The mind loves patterns. Even negative ones. But you can teach it new patterns if you're gentle and consistent." After they said goodbye, Leo sat with those words. Gentle and consistent. He realized that all his life, he had tried to force himself to change. He pushed himself harshly, judged himself quickly, expected himself to be flawless. But change didn't come from pressure. Change came from patience, from awareness, from kindness. That night, before going to bed, Leo washed his face, brushed his teeth, and sat silently on the edge of his bed. He closed his eyes and breathed slowly. Thoughts appeared. Doubts appeared. Worries appeared. But he didn't fight them. He didn't run from them. He simply watched. The same way he had watched the fog that morning. He whispered, "I am learning to walk through my mind." He felt calm. He felt safe. He felt like he was no longer drowning in the fog, but slowly, gently moving through it. And then, something beautiful happened. For the first time in many years, Leo fell asleep easily. No battle.no fear.no storm. Just breath. Just quiet. Just the small candle of awareness glowing softly inside him. Over the next week, Leo noticed something remarkable, something small but powerful. His thoughts had not disappeared. His fears had not vanished. His worries still appeared every morning, like old visitors who refused to leave. But something inside him had changed. He was no longer reacting immediately. He was no longer believing every thought. He was no longer letting his mind pull him into dark places without question. He was beginning to talk back. Not with anger. Not with force. But with quiet understanding. With patience. With awareness. On Monday morning, when he woke up and heard the familiar whisper say, "You're going to fail today," Leo closed his eyes and gently replied, "That is just a prediction, not the truth." And the voice softened. On Tuesday, when the voice said, "People will judge you," Leo answered, "People are focused on their own lives. My mind is creating a story." And the fear loosened its grip. On Wednesday, when the voice said, "You're not good enough," Leo whispered, "I don't have to be perfect. I just have to be present." And a sense of calm entered his body. These responses were simple. They were soft. They were not strong arguments or loud defenses. They were gentle reminders, messages that helped Leo step away from automatic fear and step into conscious, thoughtful awareness. One afternoon that week, after finishing some tasks at work, Leo decided to take a short walk outside. He walked to a small park nearby, the same park where he had once watched the little boy with the red kite. This time, the park felt different to him, not because the park had changed, but because he had. He sat on a wooden bench near a group of tall, friendly trees whose leaves whispered softly with the wind. As he sat there, his mind felt surprisingly calm. Thoughts still came because thoughts always come, but they passed through him like gentle waves instead of heavy storms. He sat quietly, simply watching the world around him. A group of school children played on the grass. A woman read a book under a tree. A man walked his dog, smiling as the dog chased butterflies. Leo watched all these small moments and felt something warm inside him, a sense of connection. A sense of belonging. A sense of being part of something bigger than his inner struggles. A few minutes later, an older man sat down on the bench beside him. The man had soft eyes and a gentle presence. He wore a simple white shirt and carried a thermos of tea. He smiled and said, "Beautiful day." Leo returned the smile. "Yes, it is." The man looked around the park and said quietly, "This is my favorite place. It helps me breathe." Then he took a slow sip of his tea. After a short silence, the man looked at Leo again. "You look thoughtful. Are you carrying something heavy?" Leo hesitated. But the man's voice felt kind, safe. "I've been working on my mind," Leo said. "Trying to understand my thoughts. Trying to change old patterns." The older man nodded slowly, as if he understood perfectly. "Ah," he said. "The mind is like a river. Sometimes calm. Sometimes wild. Sometimes muddy." He looked at Leo with warm eyes. "What part of the river are you in right now?" Leo thought for a moment. "I think I'm learning how to stand on the bank instead of being pulled by the water." The man smiled softly. "That is wisdom." Leo felt a small glow inside his chest at those words. The man continued, "When you stand on the bank, the river still flows. The water still moves. The noise is still there. But you're watching. You are not drowning. Leo nodded. That's exactly how it feels. The man leaned back for a moment and said gently, most people fight the river. They shout at it. They try to stop it. But the river cannot be stopped. The secret is not to fight but to observe. Leo listened carefully to each word. The man added, but there is something else. He paused, letting the moment breathe. Sometimes you must talk to the river. Leo blinked in surprise. Talk to it. The man nodded. Yes. When the river says, you're not enough, you can say, thank you, but I choose a different thought. When the river says, be afraid, you can say, I am safe right now. When the river says, you cannot change, you can say, I am changing slowly and gently. Leo felt a warm spark inside him. Talking back to the river. Speaking gently to his thoughts. He had been practicing this without fully realizing its power. The man's voice softened. When you speak kindly to your mind learns to speak kindly back. Then he stood up slowly. Take care of yourself, young man. Leo wanted to ask more questions, but the man walked away with quiet steps, blending into the soft glow of the afternoon light. Leo sat for a long time after that, thinking about the river inside his mind. He realized that for years, he had always let the river carry him. Every thought had pulled him in a direction he didn't choose. But now he was learning to stand on the shore. And standing there felt peaceful, empowering, new. That evening, after returning home, Leo made himself a warm cup of tea and sat on the floor near his window. He opened his notebook and wrote, Talk to the river. Below it, he wrote several gentle replies to his own negative thoughts. When my mind says, you're not ready, I will say, I will do my best. That is enough. When my mind says, you will fail, I will say, I am learning. Failure is part of learning. When my mind says, people will judge you, I will say, people are focused on their own journey. When my mind says, you're not good enough, I will say, I am growing every day. As he wrote these sentences, he didn't feel like he was fighting himself. He felt like he was comforting himself. Like he was offering support to the child inside him who had been afraid for so long. That night, Leo went to bed feeling peaceful. But the next morning, something unexpected happened. He woke up suddenly with a heavy feeling in his chest. His heart raced for no clear reason. His breathing felt tight. The familiar voice of fear came back with more strength than before. You're slipping back. You're not improving. You will never change. Leo sat up quickly, surprised and confused. He felt like he was back at the beginning, as if all his progress had disappeared overnight. For a moment, panic rose in his chest, like a wave threatening to pull him under. But then he remembered something important. Healing is not a straight line. Growth is not always smooth. Sometimes the mind becomes louder before it becomes quieter. Sometimes old patterns return, so we can learn how to respond differently. He closed his eyes and placed a hand on his chest. His breath was shaky. His thoughts were fast. But he whispered, this is just a wave. It will pass. The voice inside him tried to argue. No, this is proof you're failing. But Leo remembered the old man's words. Talk to the river. So he whispered gently, thank you for trying to protect me, but I choose a different thought. For a moment, nothing changed. The fear was still there, sitting heavily in his body. But Leo breathed slowly, choosing patience instead of panic. He whispered again, I am safe in this moment. Then again, this is a feeling, not a fact. Then again, the river is loud today. But I am still on the bank. Slowly, breath by breath, the heaviness began to soften. The panic loosened its hold on him. The fear became quieter. It didn't disappear completely, because fear almost never disappears completely, but it no longer controlled him. He no longer felt lost inside it. Later that day, he walked outside, needing fresh air. The sky was bright blue, the sun warm on his skin. As he walked, he whispered to himself, I faced the wave. I talked to the river. I stayed present. He felt proud. Not because he had done something extraordinary, but because he had stayed with himself through the storm. That afternoon, Leo met Maya for coffee. They hadn't seen each other in a long time. Maya, with her bright smile and expressive hands, immediately hugged him when he walked in. "You look lighter," she said. Leo laughed gently. "I feel a little lighter." They sat down at a small table by the window. Sunlight poured in, warm and golden. Leo told her about his journey, about the woman on the bus, the boy with the kite, the older woman with the journal, the man in the park, the fog, the notebook, the candle inside his mind. Maya listened with deep attention, nodding slowly, smiling softly, sometimes closing her eyes as if she felt the story deeply. When he finished, she said quietly, "Leo, you're learning something people spend their whole lives avoiding." Leo tilted his head. "What do you mean?" Maya leaned forward and said, "You are learning how to be with yourself. Most people run from their minds. They stay busy. They distract themselves. But you're learning to sit with your thoughts, even the difficult ones. That is courage." Leo felt a warm wave of emotion rise in his chest. Not sadness. Not fear. Something gentle. Something soft. Something like self-respect. Maya smiled. "You're changing, Leo. I can hear it in your voice." Leo whispered, "I hope so." "You are," she said. "And the change is not loud. It's quiet. It's slow. It's real." Later, as Leo walked home, he felt the truth of Maya's words. Real change is quiet. Real change is slow. Real change is gentle. Real change begins inside the mind, one thought at a time. That night, Leo stood near his window and looked out at the city below. Lights shimmered like small stars scattered across the ground. He placed his hand on the glass, feeling the coolness. He whispered, "I am learning to talk back to my thoughts. I am learning to stay with myself. I am learning to choose kindness instead of fear." And the candle inside him grew just a little brighter. The next morning, Leo woke up and lay still for a moment, listening to his breath. It was calm, soft, gentle. The room around him felt warm and peaceful, touched by the early morning light. He didn't rush to get up. He didn't rush to judge himself. He didn't rush to listen to the familiar voices of fear. Instead, he simply breathed. And in that simple breathing, he felt something he had not felt in a long time: safety. He placed a hand on his chest and whispered, "I'm here." Just two small words, but those words made him feel grounded, steady, alive. As he sat up, he heard the quiet voice of thought stirring inside his mind, but today it sounded less like a storm and more like a whisper carried on the wind. You might fail today. You might make mistakes. You might not be enough. But Leo didn't react. He didn't panic. He didn't sink into fear. Instead, he smiled softly and said, "Thank you for trying to protect me, but I'm okay." And for the first time, the voice inside him felt like it nodded, understanding. He got dressed, made some tea, and stepped outside. The city was waking up slowly. The air was fresh, the sky soft and pale. As he walked toward the bus stop, he felt a sense of calm in his steps, a lightness in his chest. The world looked the same, but he didn't feel the same. He felt present, aware, connected to himself. When he arrived at the bus stop, he noticed something surprising. The woman from many days ago, the woman with the notebook, was standing there again. She wore the same warm smile, the same calm energy, the same gentle presence. Leo felt a sudden warmth in his chest. He approached her and said softly, "Hi." She looked up, recognized him, and smiled. "Hello again." They stepped onto the bus together and sat in two seats near the window. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The bus moved smoothly through the morning streets, and Leo felt a sense of quiet excitement inside him, like the universe had brought something full circle. After a few minutes, the woman opened her notebook. The same notebook he had read before. The same sentence on the cover. Your thoughts are not your identity. Leo took a breath and said, I want to thank you. The woman tilted her head gently. For what? For that sentence, Leo said. It changed something inside me. It helped me start a new journey. She smiled in the calm way people smile when they are proud without needing to show it. Good, she said. The sentence helped me too. Leo hesitated, then asked, Did you write any other sentences in your notebook? She nodded and turned the pages until she found what she was looking for. She showed him a page with soft handwriting. Be kind to the voice inside you. Leo read the words slowly, letting them sink into his mind like warm light. That's beautiful, he whispered. The woman closed the notebook softly. The world teaches us to be kind to others, she said. But no one teaches us to be kind to ourselves. We must learn that on our own. Leo nodded. I'm trying. That's all you need to do, she said gently. The bus stopped, and the woman gathered her things. This is my stop again, she said with a warm smile. Keep going. You're doing well. Leo smiled back. Thank you. Truly. As she walked away, Leo felt a deep gratitude fill his chest. People come into our lives in unexpected moments, he thought. Sometimes for a second. Sometimes for a lifetime. But each person carries a lesson. And this woman had given him one of the most important lessons of his life. Later that day, after finishing his work, Leo walked through the city with a quiet strength he had not known before. He felt the warmth of the sun on his skin, the rhythm of his steps on the pavement, the gentle chatter of people around him. Everything felt more alive, more connected, more spacious. And then something beautiful happened. He met the little boy with the red kite again. The boy was in the same park, running with the same kite, but now the kite flew easily, high above him. The boy laughed loudly, spinning in circles, letting the wind carry the bright red cloth into the sky. Leo felt his heart expand at the sight. The father of the boy saw Leo and waved. The kite flies better now, he said with a proud smile. Leo walked closer. It looks wonderful. The father nodded. We kept practicing. Some days the wind helped us. Some days it didn't. But we kept trying. Leo smiled gently. That sounds like life. The father laughed. Yes. Sometimes the wind is with you. Sometimes it's not. But you hold the string and keep trying anyway. Leo looked at the boy running with joy and felt something deep inside him shift, as if a piece of his own childhood had been healed. Thank you, Leo whispered, almost without meaning to. The father tilted his head. For what? For reminding me, Leo said softly, that things get easier with practice. Even the things inside our minds. The father smiled warmly. Anything that grows takes time. Leo took a slow breath and felt the truth of those words settle inside him like warm sunlight. As he walked away, he thought about his own mind. He thought about how, for many years, he had expected himself to change overnight. He wanted to wake up one morning and feel confident, peaceful, fearless. But that was not how growth worked. Growth was slow. Growth was gentle. Growth was steady. Growth was patient. Later that evening, Leo met Maya again. They sat in a quiet cafe, sipping warm drinks while soft music played in the background. Maya looked at him carefully and said, You seem different today. Leo smiled. I think something inside me is finally clicking. Maya placed her chin on her hand, listening with full attention. Tell me. So Leo told her everything. The woman on the bus, the boy and the kite, the quiet fog, the older woman with the journal, the kind man in the park, the river inside his mind, the wave of fear he survived, the gentle voice he had learned to speak with, the small candle of awareness growing brighter each day. When he finished, Maya's eyes were soft and shining. Leo, she said quietly, you're learning how to love yourself. Leo felt a sudden tightness in his chest, not painful, but emotional, meaningful. I never really knew what that meant, he admitted. Loving myself. Maya reached across the table and gently took his hand. Loving yourself is not about feeling proud all the time. It's not about thinking you're perfect or special. Loving yourself means being there for yourself. It means being kind to yourself when your mind becomes loud. It means choosing patience instead of punishment. She squeezed his hand softly. You're doing that now. Leo felt tears gather in his eyes, not from sadness, but from a deep sense of recognition. For the first time in his life, he felt like he understood what self-love truly meant. It wasn't big. It wasn't fancy. It wasn't dramatic. It was quiet, warm, steady. It was a small light he carried inside him, guiding him gently through the fog. After their conversation, Leo walked home slowly, letting the night air brush softly against his face. The sky above him was filled with stars, tiny, distant, beautiful lights shining through the darkness. He stopped for a moment and looked up at them. They reminded him of his own thoughts, scattered across the sky of his mind, some bright, some dim, some far away, some close. But the sky was vast. The sky held everything. Leo whispered to himself, I am the sky. My thoughts are the stars. And he felt a deep sense of freedom in that idea. When he reached home, he opened his window and sat on the floor. He lit a small candle, the one he had bought earlier that week. Its warm, gentle glow filled the room. He watched the flame dance softly, quietly, beautifully. It reminded him of everything he had learned, everything he had become, everything he was still becoming. He opened his notebook and wrote, I am learning to love myself. I am learning to choose kindness. I am learning to walk through the fog. I am learning to talk to the river. I am learning to hold my candle. I am learning to be the sky. Then he placed his pen down and closed his eyes. He breathed slowly, deeply, calmly. Thoughts came as they always do. You might make mistakes. You might feel scared again. You might have bad days. But Leo whispered gently back, yes, and I will stay with myself anyway. In that moment, something inside him opened. Something quiet. Something powerful. Something true. He realized that overcoming negative thinking was not about eliminating thoughts. It was not about silencing fear. It was not about becoming perfect. It was about choosing awareness, choosing kindness, choosing patience, choosing presence, choosing himself again and again and again. And as he sat there with the candle glowing beside him, Leo finally felt it. The quiet strength within. The strength that had always been there, waiting, growing, waking up. And now, at last, shining.